Well, thank you all for coming. My name is Rebecca Curry, and I'm the Public Services Supervisor in ESU Special Collections and Archives, which is hosting our program. We're pleased to be joined by KVOE Sports Director Greg Ray to talk about his career in broadcasting and his experiences as the radio voice of Hornet Athletics. Following our discussion, we will have some time for audience Q&A, and you can submit your questions at emporia.edu/live. So Greg, they say that the beginning is a very good place to start. So how did you first get into radio and how did you come to KVOE?
Well, for me, broadcasting became I guess a dream. When I was in high school, we'd be going on vacation trips and I'd listen to radio at night, and I thought, hey, this would be kind of a fun job to have, working in radio, and I kind of kept that dream alive and had my first part-time job at a radio station in my hometown. I grew up in Salina, and one of the main stations in Salina, KSAL, was kind enough to hire me as a part-timer when I was a senior in high school for a short time. And then I went out to Colby Community College to learn how to do the business, so to speak, a little bit better. And while I was there, we took a road trip to Fort Hays State, who was at that time, the radio TV department was broadcasting their home basketball games, tape delaying them and playing them back. And I thought, hey, this would be fun. So I transferred to Fort Hays State and spent a couple of years at Fort Hays State, got my degree there. Ended up, while I was going to school at Colby Community College, met a gentleman by the name of Lee Firestone, and he would be the one who would end up hiring me to come to Emporia to work as a sports director at KVOE, and with the intent of, at the time, they didn't have the rights to Emporia State Athletics, but the intent was for me to become the voice of the Hornets. And as they say, the rest is history. Some 32 years later, after I told my wife we're only going to be here for 5 years, she's still asking me, when's that 5 years going to be up?
So in a career that spanned that long so far, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of development in technology. So what was the technical side of radio like when you started working in the field, and how has your job changed with the introduction of new technologies?
Well, old technologies, I guess you'd have to call it archaic at that time. We played records, 45s. Some people may have those at home and used to listen to those. That's what we played our music off of. We had what looked like 8-track tapes. They're called carts, and that's what all our commercials were recorded on, and any recorded material was recorded onto those or onto reel-to-reel tape. And it was all very, at the time we thought state-of-the-art stuff, working with high technology, and boy, this was fun stuff. And as time has gone along, I've had some conversations with fellow broadcasters about how technology has changed and what we are doing has changed. When I got into it, radio, the only way we got information out to people was through the radio itself, of speaking over the airwaves. And now we have multiple ways of connecting with people and getting information out, and multiple types of information we can get out. When I got into it, a TV station was the one who provided the video aspect of media and disseminating information. Well, now radio stations, even newspapers for that fact, now also offer those particular services. We videotape and put videos up on our websites. People can access us not only on their radios at home or in their car radios, but on their phones, on their pads, on their laptops. There are different ways that everybody has access to it. And we always felt like radio is one of the more immediate entities as far as the media is concerned, because we can just get on the air and do it. TV has to set things up. They have to set the video up and that kind of stuff and get things set up. With radio, we can just get on the air and start telling people what's going on. Well, everybody wants to know what's going on now, and all they have to do is pull out their phone, pull up, access whatever app they're wanting to access, and they can get the information, or they want to get the information now. So it becomes more of an immediate type of scenario. There are still some things that we can do that we can delay and we don't have to get on immediately, but the access part of it is now everybody can access whatever they want to access it when they want to access it, and they don't have to wait till like when I first started, you don't have to wait till the news came on in the morning or during the noon hour or at the 5 o'clock hour where the news came on. Then you could find out what happened during the day. You can just look, okay, let's see what's new on the web pages of these stations or newspapers or whatever. And that's how it's really changed what we do. It's not just radio anymore. It's news. It's providing information in multiple different formats, whether it be over the radio, which we still do, or it's on a Facebook page or through a Twitter. And that's the biggest change, especially over probably the last 10 years, is when I've seen the most change in that area, where we're just scratching the surface of how we can and do disseminate information.
Absolutely, yeah, and I will say that I'm an internet KBOE listener, so I can attest to that. So as we've mentioned, and as no doubt many of our viewers already know, you are the voice of ESU football and basketball, and you also do some baseball and softball games.
Correct.
So how would you say that the different aspects of each of these sports kind of affect the broadcasting experience?
For me, it's basically how you describe what the sport is. When you get down to the fundamentals of or sports play-by-play, it's all pretty much basically the same. Who has the ball, or who has the whatever the implement happens to be, the ball. Since it's basically baseball, softball, and basketball and football that I do, who has the ball, what do they do with it, where they have it, and kind of what happens. For broadcast, for sports play-by-play, it's kind of the who, what, when, where, and why that journalism uses. We do the same thing in a sports broadcast. Okay, who has the ball? Where do they have the ball? What do they do with the ball? What happens after they do that? And that's basically, and it's a different way of, for each sport, it's a little bit different. For football, you can be a little more detailed. Basketball, it's so fast paced, sometimes you skip a pass or two. For me, that's the easiest of the sports to broadcast because it does have a little bit of pace to it, and it's easier to keep it going. Baseball and softball are the two that you do have a lot more time to be a little more in depth with some of the things that you do. But for me, I also enjoy baseball and softball because they're sports that the best way to describe it is they can be described as being as simple as pitching, hitting, catching, throwing, or you can get in as depth as you want to be. Why does the pitcher throw this pitch at this particular time? Why did the base runner steal at this particular time? What was the hitter trying to do? Was he trying to take the ball to the left side of the infield or to the right side of the infield? And then you can become a little more in depth, because with baseball and softball, you can be as simplistic as you want to be, or you can be as in depth as you want to be. And football kind of gives you that same scenario, but it's still a little more fast paced, and you have to pay attention to more what's going on. Sometimes with baseball, you can look away and not a whole lot happens.
Makes sense. So looking back and going back through your time with the Hornets so far, what are a couple of your most memorable in-game moments, would you say?
You know, I've been thinking about that. What are the one that comes to my mind the most in the first? It's a basketball game in Emporia State men. They were playing at Southwest Baptist. One of our players, Sean Robbins, makes a great save from going out of bounds. Unfortunately, he saves it, and he scores a basket for Southwest Baptist as he's saving it. It made ESPN highlights, and it's one of the most spectacular shots I've seen anybody make. Unfortunately, it was for the other team. Another in-game scenario, we were at men's basketball, we were at Missouri-Rolla. And the opening tip, Emporia State wins the opening tip, and one of the players takes the ball, goes down the floor, dunks it. Unfortunately, wrong goal. He's opened up the game scoring a basket for Missouri-Rolla. I don't recall if Emporia State won either of those games, but those are a couple of plays that stand out. As far as games themselves, of course, the championship games that I've been fortunate to broadcast, the 1989 NAI National Championship Football game, it was one I remember. But I also remember the semifinal game in the playoffs when Emporia State went out to Alamosa, Colorado to play Adams State. And the quarterback at the time, his name was Mike Birch, and he basically put the team on his shoulders and led Emporia State, outscoring Adams State in a high-scoring affair, and took them to the first NAI National Championship game. And I thought that was one of the more best individual performances on the football field. And then I can go to the late 1990s when Brian Shea was setting his records at Emporia State. And just about every game that he played, he was doing something new and spectacular. And every game that he had was one that you could put down as a memorable one. Of course, when he broke the NCAA Division II single season and career rushing records, and some of those games, I can remember those. Some close games on the football field against Pittsburgh State, and winning a 13-3 game at Pittsburgh State in the early 2000s was one that also stands out. And of course, the women's basketball championship run in 2010. And the thing that stands out to me about that particular scenario, I can remember driving down to Texas, Canyon, Texas, and with the group we were traveling with, talking about, Emporia State gets an at-large bid to the regional. They were defeated in the semifinal round of the MIAA tournament, and you're hoping, well, maybe if they can just win a couple games and make the season worthwhile, and lo and behold, they end up winning the regional, knocking off the host team, West Texas A&M, in the semifinals before they defeated Northeastern State, who was not a part of the MIAA at the time, in the regional championship game, and then going to the Elite Eight, which was played in St. Joe, Missouri. And in the semifinal round, you're playing Gannon, who's undefeated on the season and having a great year. And I can remember that game, we were trailing, and it was about halfway through the second half, and I'm starting to think, this has been a good run for the Lady Hornets. They made it to the semifinal game of the Elite Eight, and they're a game away from the national championship game, and starting to think, okay, what kind of questions do I want to ask Coach Brandon Schneider after the game? Well, I shouldn't have started thinking about that then, and because Emporia State Lady Hornets do come back, they win the game and taking it into overtime, and then they end up winning the national championship. And the first time that they played in a national championship game, and what was it, 1998, I think it was, playing North Dakota in the championship game, and then going through a season where they didn't lose during the regular season. And the only game they lost was that national championship game. That was a special season as well. And there's just been a lot of individual performances. I can remember a great night by Thomas Vincent at White Auditorium. He set the school record for most points scored in a single game. Before that, it was Robbie Ballard, who had a really individual game, over 50 points scored in the game. Those are some of the performances that I kind of remember. And even the Baseball World Series, 2009, Emporia State gets to the championship game, being played in Cary, North Carolina, and the baseball team going back and forth. And it was a close game. If I remember right, it was a 2-1 final score. So it was a close game in the championship game. And some of the things, I remember games as well, but I also remember the interactions with the students and the coaches, the student athletes and the coaches leading up to those games, and just throughout the season, and talking with the student athletes and talking to the coaches of how they're preparing and what they're doing to help make themselves better and improve and hope to have a successful season. Those are also things that I kind of remember about my job. And one of the things I do enjoy about it is watching the student athlete develop from the time they come onto campus, whether they're a transfer student or a freshman, just to watch them develop throughout their career and to see what they become once they reach that senior year, that final year of eligibility, and kind of enjoy some of the fruits of their labor. I think that's as enjoyable for me as it is, I know, for the coaches to watch kids develop and become what they can become.
Absolutely. So over the past year, I guess we've all gone through a situation that maybe has been memorable in some less positive ways. And I know that the pandemic has obviously had a major impact on the sports world. So what were you experiencing last March as college athletics were shutting down, and how did you find that your job kind of adapted as it became clear that competition wasn't going to resume in 2020?
Yeah, that was, for me, that was really I don't know if I can really describe it, because I still don't know how I guess you just adapted and you went, dealt with the situation as best you could. It was disappointing that the student athletes weren't allowed to compete anymore, and that the competition wasn't there for them, and there wasn't that outlet for people to maybe take a little frustration out cheering on for their favorite team. And I felt so badly for the student athletes who were affected more by what was happening than myself, really, or for the casual fan, because they, especially for those that they knew that was going to be their final year, that was going to be their senior year. They weren't going to have another opportunity to compete because they've graduated. They were going to graduate, and it was time for them to get on with their lives. I felt so sorry for them, and I felt so bad for them that they didn't get that chance to compete, to spend time with their teammates, to compete in front of their family members, their friends. And I just, it was frustrating for me because they didn't get a chance to enjoy that competition and enjoy that ability to be around fellow teammates. And because everybody was told basically go home and we'll do school over online. And I can understand why all that took place. And I have no problems with it taking place and with them doing that, because I understand why they did it. And it almost had to be done if you wanted to get a handle on COVID. But I just felt so bad that they didn't have that opportunity. That's why I was so happy that the NCAA said, if you were in a sport that had your season canceled, you can have that year back. So a lot of student athletes are going to get that year back and then some, and hopefully they can take advantage of it. And hopefully we can have more fans attending the sporting events than what we had this last year. And hopefully everybody takes care of themselves and does the right things, the mask, the social distancing, the hand washing, and if you haven't yet, get vaccinated. There's my public service announcement.
Thank you. So next, I've got, I guess, kind of more zoom out, kind of high level question for you. What would you say is the most rewarding thing and the most challenging thing about being a sports broadcaster?
For me, the most rewarding thing is to being able to cover the sport itself. For me, I grew up and I enjoyed watching sports and participated in sports, and I've always kind of been around it. So I've always enjoyed that opportunity to, be around it. And that's what I enjoy the most, is being around the student athletes, the coaches, the competition, the ups and downs of the wins and the losses. Don't care for the losses as much as I do the wins, obviously. But sometimes in a loss, you can learn a lot and you can gain a lot. And sometimes you have to tip your hat to the opposition, even though sometimes I don't like to really do that. But yeah, you should do that. And because you have to remember, as many coaches have told me in the past, the opposition, they have student athletes too that are on scholarship. So it's not like we're playing some pickup team that comes into Emporia all the time. But there are schools that do give out scholarships besides Emporia State, so I have to remember that. And that sometimes they do have better athletes and better players. And sometimes you just have to enjoy the positiveness that goes along with it, whether it, even in a loss, you can find something positive to talk about. And that's what I try to do, regardless of the situation. Even if it's a win or a loss, I try to find something positive that players or coaches can talk about, that they can build on as they go along. And but for me, it's the rewarding part is just being there to enjoy it, to witness it, to be a part of it. It's not about me, it's about what goes on in front of me. And I just have the opportunity and the blessing to be able to describe what's happening in front of me. Not everybody can make it to all the games, so somebody has to tell them what's going on. And I volunteer, so I've been very blessed to be able to see a lot of really good athletic performances, both Emporia State-wise and from opposition-wise, and to be able to tell people what's happening in front of me. And hopefully it's more about what's happening in front of me than myself describing the game itself. And as far as the challenges, for me, the big challenge is the travel aspect of it. When you go to a game, especially during the basketball season, maybe a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, maybe even a Thursday night, and the game doesn't get over with until 9:30, 10 o'clock, and you don't leave the arena until 11 o'clock, you still have to drive back to Emporia for a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive. And then for me, my next work day starts at 6 a.m. So it's a short time turnaround. And that's been probably the biggest challenge. And there are days where I'm saying I'm getting too old for this, and that might be the case. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely a hectic schedule sometimes.
Yes, it can be.
So our final question for you is, do you have any words of advice for young people or others who are interested in broadcasting as a career?
My words of advice would be, if you're interested in it, explore it. Find out if this is something you really want to do. The thing that I will caution those people about is that, yes, it's glamorous if you're on the TV and people are watching you and doing what you do, but you also have to realize that there's a lot of preparation work that goes into each of those broadcasts. It's not just show up to the game, they turn on the cameras and you go and you just start talking about stuff. There's a lot of preparation that goes along with it, and you have to realize that you probably spend more time preparing for that broadcast than that broadcast will last. Putting together game note or going over game notes and putting together spotter boards or whatever you use. It is at times a labor of love, because you enjoy doing the research on the players, on the teams, those type of things, just so you can maybe tell a better story when it comes time to the broadcast. It's not just something that you can walk in and do. It takes some time and some preparation to do it. But with that being said, if it's something that you feel like, hey, I'd like to give this a try, explore it. Take a look. There are a number of books out there, and I'm sure there are internships you could get involved with. And the other thing is, if you're in high school and you're looking at doing that, take as many speech and type of classes, forensics, debate, get involved with those if you want to. But the other part is, when you're broadcasting sports, you also need to understand the sport, and you need to know the rules. You need to know a lot of the background, and part of it is participating or playing that sport. One way to do that is go out and participate in it. Go out for the team. With basketball, there's only a limited number of spaces, and you might not make the team. But then ask coach, hey, can I be a manager or something like that? Be involved with the team because you want to learn about the game. And then when you get into college too, you could also take, just so you get a better background of understanding the sport, there are coaching classes you could take to help you understand the sport a little better, and you can learn from some of that. And sometimes just watching sports allows you to gain some knowledge of, how a coach makes a decision and why they do this or do that. And talking with coaches at all levels, sometimes just watching the game, you can learn a lot about how you handle yourself, make plays, get your teammates involved. And it can be a very rewarding career, but it's not one that is as easy as it looks like it is, but it can be as fun as it looks like it is.
Definitely. So, well, now we've come to the end of our questions for you, but we will be jumping over to another video on the Hornet TV YouTube channel for our audience Q&A segment. So we hope that everyone will join us there in just a moment. And if anyone has questions for Greg, you can submit those at emporia.edu/live. Well, we're back here with Greg Ray for our question and answer segment. You can submit your questions at emporia.edu/live. You'll see a handy submission form there. And we actually already have a question from ESU's very own Don Wiest. It's actually two questions. He'd like to know, what's your favorite road trip in the MIAA? And what has been your favorite place to eat on the road?
That sounds like a Don Weiss double question. Favorite road trip in the MIAA? Right now, I don't know. That's the short ones are the best, by the way, Don. As you well know, the one up to Topeka is a pretty short one. And then we have a couple of short ones. The one down to Wichita is a short one. But all time, my favorite road trip, since we joined the MIAA, would have to have been St. Louis. When either we were playing Missouri St. Louis when they were still a part of the MIAA, or even when Lindenwood was a part of the MIAA. Going to the St. Louis, that was always a trip, because you usually meant you were going to have to, if it was a doubleheader in basketball, stay over, and you'd have to find something to do in St. Louis. And you could always find good places to eat and that kind of stuff. My favorite place to eat, the place that's in between Tahlequah and Tulsa. I can't remember the name of it. But it's a really nice it's a bar basically out in the middle of nowhere, east of Tulsa on 412, I believe it is. And that's a nice place. And it's got one of those strange names like, I can't remember what the name of the place is, but that's one of my favorite places to stop. They have decent food.
It's too bad you couldn't remember the name there. Yelp reviews could have gone through the roof.
Well, and of them, there are other trips that are fun to take. Fort Hays is a good trip to take. Partly, I'm a Fort Hays State grad, so it's nice to get back to the old alma mater every once in a while and see what's new on campus. But there are some trips that I'm glad we don't have to take anymore. No offense to Missouri Rolla, no offense to Kirksville, Missouri, but those are trips I don't miss anymore. Those are long trips that meant, if you went there in the middle of the week, especially during the basketball season, it meant a late night getting back or early morning getting back, and those can always be a little more of a challenge.
Yeah, understandable. So we have another question, and this is something that we didn't quite get to discussing earlier since we were focusing more on your college experience. But Sherry is wondering if you could talk some about KVOE's coverage of high school sports and maybe how that's similar or different to college sports.
Now, at KVOE, we try to keep, one of our focuses is Emporia High, since we are in Emporia, and we try to give them the same type of coverage that we give Emporia State. Obviously, we give Emporia State maybe just a little bit more since we do some of their baseball and softball regular season games. And unfortunately, for Emporia High, they're playing at a time where broadcast-wise, it conflicts with some of the other programming that we have. And a lot of it being, since we're a Royals affiliate, that baseball and softball sometimes conflicts with that and some other programming we have. But we try to give Emporia High as much the same coverage that we give Emporia State. The sports that we don't broadcast, I'll cover them as well as I can cover the Emporia State sports that we don't broadcast, and which basically I go and talk to the coaches, talk to athletes before they have a competition, and try to get information out of, hey, this is when they're playing, this is who they're playing, and here's a little bit of something from one of the athletes on what they think it's going to take to win or what they're looking to accomplish with this particular competition. And we also broadcast area games, mainly football and basketball. And if somebody makes it to state in baseball or softball, we might pick up some of those games. We try to do the best we can of getting as many of the area schools on. Unfortunately, sometimes we may not get an area school on during a broadcast, but a lot of it, for us, it does come also down to a revenue decision. Is this a place that we can go and we can also generate some revenue to help cover the expenses of us covering those games? Some people may feel like we cover one school more than another school, but unfortunately, sometimes that's because one school might be going to the postseason more often than any other schools do. So it may feel that way, but we try to do the best we can to be equal and try to give as many schools an opportunity to give them coverage. And we also try to do the best we can of providing updates on some of their other activities. Sometimes it's a challenge getting some information, but we do the best that we can, and we try to do the best we can. And we always enjoy covering the area schools because we know those student athletes put as much time in and as much work in as the Emporia High athletes and as much as the Emporia State athletes to some extent. And we try to give them as much coverage as possible. But we try to do what we can with the area schools, and with Emporia High, we get as much as we can on the air as far as game broadcasts, especially football and basketball, since those are the main sports that the majority of the population seems to have an interest in because of the history behind them. And then we try to cover the other sports in different ways of providing updates and giving scores and doing interviews with athletes and coaches and try to give them coverage that way.
Yeah, and while we're waiting to see if we have some more questions come in, kind of spinning off of that, thinking more about the kind of local area coverage, I was wondering if you could talk some about maybe the smaller sports that KVOU will cover, like say rodeos or so forth, kind of what that's like and how that goes.
Well, unfortunately, we don't cover them like normal, like we would baseball or football or basketball, since they're spread out and it's not necessarily a school-related sport. We try, if we get results, sometimes we try to cover that. We'll give, if we get a hold of them, if people gives us heads up that, hey, there's somebody from the area did well at the state high school rodeos, or somebody's going to the national final rodeos, or somebody in the area is doing well in the pro circuit, we'll give that information. We'll share that information and we'll report on it. But there's a lot that goes on that unfortunately we probably don't get to cover, because part of it is We don't know that it's going on because people haven't shared that information with us. And even though people may put stuff on Facebook and that kind of stuff, not everybody is friends with everybody, and so we don't get everything that's going on. So we'll miss a few things, but we try to do the best that we can. And if anybody has anything that they think that might be worthy of recognition, just send us the information. KVOE@kvoe.com is the email that you can send it to, or rayg@kvoe.com, and we'll look into it. And if we feel like that falls within what we want to cover, and usually if it's something that's happening that's involving an area person, it's of interest, and we'll probably do something with it either on the sports side or maybe even on the news side.
Yeah, well, now everyone has that information, so they have no excuse for not contacting you, right?
That is true. And I do take phone calls at the station, 620-342-1400.
Well, we'll give everyone, I guess, another minute or two to get their questions in. I don't know if there's anything else you might want to discuss while we're waiting, or anything else you might want to share with us.
No, I'd just like to say thanks to all those people who have listened over the years and have taken time to put up with me and allowed me to be a part of their lives and allowed me to be, share the excitement of Emporia State athletics and the other athletic events that I cover, to allow me to be a part of that and let me to share that excitement with them. And hopefully that excitement comes across in the genuine care that I want everybody to succeed. I especially when the hometown team, I want to see them win every game. I know it's not always going to be possible, but you always like to tell a good story because it's easier to tell about a victory than it is about a loss. But I'd just like to thank all the listeners and all the people who have been fans of Emporia State and who have supported Emporia State for allowing me to be a part of their lives. And thanks to all the people at KVOE, Ron Thomas, Steve Souter, who continue to allow me to be a part of sharing the excitement of Emporia State athletics, and all my coworkers as well. Without them, my job becomes a lot more difficult, and I do appreciate everything that everybody's done for me. And I just hope that I can, at least for a while, can continue to bring the excitement of Emporia State athletics to everybody, into their living room, into their cars, or wherever they may be.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that your loyal audience appreciates you as well. Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions coming in at the moment, so we may go ahead and wrap up. I would like to thank everyone again for taking the time to be with us tonight. And before we sign off, I do want to invite everyone to come to our latest exhibit in Special Collections and Archives, which is focused on ESU athletics, kind of highlighting some of the people who have helped to build the program over the years. And I also want to let everyone know about our next event coming up. April 13th, also at 7 p.m., we'll be having a conversation with former ESU women's basketball coach Cindy Stein, and we're really looking forward to that one and hope that we'll see everyone there as well.
And just so people know, where are the archives located if they want to come and check out the displays?
Yeah, so we are in the William Allen White Library on the first floor outside room 119. And if people are associated with ESU, if they're students, faculty, staff, they can access the building with their ESU ID. But if you're coming from off campus, you can just give us a call at 620-341-6431 and we'll get you in to see the exhibit.
And I'm looking forward to next Tuesday when you have Cindy Stein on. That should be an interesting show. I believe she's now at Southern Illinois.
She is, yeah. So we're looking forward to that one and hope that we'll see everyone there, and also hope that people start coming up with questions for Coach Stein for her Q&A segment.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you. And thanks again, everyone in the audience.